Well, I like your background, your motif, and you got the neon, you got
Thank you.
everything going on. You got a guitar back there.
I do. I am a musician.
Oh, good. Good, good, good. Well, we'll get into all of that. Uh,
Yeah,
Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate
of
it.
course. Of course.
So, I want to begin our conversation before we get into your work
Sure.
by asking you, and we're in April, 4 years ago, everything stopped. How did you survive the pandemic and how did it change you?
All right. All right. So this is this is a really interesting question, right? Because I feel like the pandemic, one, we all lived through that. And it feels like, I don't know, 20 years from now, it's going to be people sharing their stories and how, the youth did not go through that. So it's kind of fun to actually talk about it.
Yeah.
So I actually was living in San Francisco. So
Okay.
San Francisco was one of the first cities to shut down actually in the pandemic. So that was a trip.
Yeah.
Hi, living in an apartment in the city and, you know, they taped up signs on all of our doors. It was a crazy experience and, just being completely shut down.
Yeah.
Life just stopped. And we all had our different version of that, of course. And for me, um, you know, I recognize that there's a lot of bad things that happened to a lot of people, within the pandemic. And, I have my share of what that was. But what I want to talk about in answering your question is how I was in a corporate environment where I was living in San Francisco and commuting all the way down to San Jose. This is in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'd probably spend anywhere from, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour plus each way in the car, driving to work every single day.
Yeah.
And it was fine. It was I didn't think much of it because I wanted to live in the city.
Yeah.
And I was working in aerospace at the time. It was, a great time. But then when all of a sudden everyone was forced to figure out a new way or to go with a bunch of unknowns and changes, I was suddenly, forced to attempt to work from home.
Yeah.
And like a lot of us were. I know a lot of us weren't able to do that, but I was definitely someone who was able to transition into working from home. And I realized when given the opportunity to not be, commuting, 2 hours plus in a car every day, what I actually loved about life. I get to go outside and go on a walk in the morning or peacefully drink some tea or, I don't know. Well, when I talk about going out for a walk, it was a while into the pandemic before we
Yeah.
felt like we could go outside and go for a walk.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the point is that, I think what COVID and the pandemic did for me personally was force a very, very, very busy, active woman to take a moment and think about what was really important in life.
Yeah.
We all had to think about who were our friends, our best friends. I'm sure a lot of us lost connections with people in the pandemic that we never really connected with again once things started, coming back. It was such a time of clarity and finding what were the next steps in my life purpose.
Yeah. I think that was the silver lining of all of this is that it all made us reevaluate and made us just slow down. I almost feel like sometimes there was a it was based off a book, but there was a show on HBO called Left Behind, and it was about the rapture. And sometimes I look at all of us and I'm like, wow, we went through it. And it is interesting, like you said, we're so close to it in every possible way, from a scientific standpoint of linking things. Why does long-term COVID happen? To all of the logistical, societal things. Like I work in the education system, and a lot of these kids are stunted. They were home for 2 years, and a lot of that during the first year was just, let's give them grace, let's pass them through. So how many of them didn't get skill sets and social abilities? It's just interesting. And I'm almost at a point where I'm fatigued asking about it, but I think it's essential. And I don't know when it's not going to be essential to start everything off by saying, hey, we had this magnanimous seismic event affect all of us for 4 years, 3 years, because it kept going on and off. So how are you? And I don't know when that's going to go away, but it makes sense. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? It's funny you say that because I do think everyone has a different story. I do think it's important to keep learning from other people's stories, and I am curious when that all ends, as you say.
Yeah.
But also, you know, we it seems like we've all kind of just returned back.
Yeah.
We've almost forgotten so quickly this thing that happened that truly changed our lives in a way that was movie like.
Yeah.
I don't think any one of us could have predicted that we'd be locked in our houses or having to do certain things, in society or this, there, and that. It was surreal. So
It
I think
was.
I like you asking this question. So thank
Yeah.
you.
It's very Twilight Zone, the whole thing. It begins well. So, on paper, you are a dynamic entrepreneur, but I'm going to get to the brass tacks of what you do right now. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. And one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
All right. How do I answer that child? Well, I am a multifaceted entrepreneur, which means I fill my life with many different things that fill my passions, but also help me, get work so that I can get paid and, be able to make all of the bills and then grow from there. What does that really mean? It means I am a creative person and a science brain person. And so I am an author. That's part of my creative life. I have written down my whole method and process of how to build a 5-year plan and live your best life. And I promote that and trying to help others. So I live my creative world over here being an author. I live my creative world being a musician. I'm in the process of recording my album, which will release hopefully this year. And I'm also an artist. I do murals, mostly interior to people's houses, and I get to express myself in that way. So I have figured out what a lot of you, my third graders that I'm talking to right now, are looking up at the stars and dreaming about what you want to be in life. And I figured out how to carry those dreams over here, this creative fuel of those three pieces of me. But no matter how hard I try, I can't ignore this analytical engineer that I am, in my brain. I
Yeah.
studied aerospace engineering. I worked in the aerospace, industry for 12 plus years. I did leave the industry so I could really hone in on these creative actions, but I have since, returned part time and now I'm working in self-driving cars. And, I think I always need that balance. So when I
Yeah.
say I am a multifaceted entrepreneur, I am building, these businesses with my creative endeavors. I'm still doing some technical work and choosing to live life, fulfilling along the way,
Yeah.
wanting to help others get there, and picking my next, mountain goal that I want to
Yeah.
go and accomplish.
So, how did we get here? Take me back to where you were born and raised. How did these seeds of the right left brain, being an entrepreneur, being creative, how did all this kind of come together to become who you are today? How did it happen?
So, back in the day when I was born, I was actually born in Nevada, so my
Okay.
family is all mostly based. But I was about 6 years old when my family moved to California. So I moved to Southern California, left all the grandparents, aunts and uncles, all that fun stuff, and I started through the California education system. I was lucky enough to live in a beach town called San Clemente down in Southern California, and I was just surrounded by so much life and opportunity. So when I, went through school, I really honed in on things like choir and expressing, myself through art, even, as a child, taking piano, learning guitar, all those things. Not because I said I wanted to become, a pop star or something. I needed to feel that. And another really important thing about what kind of comes out of this creative and analytical right left brain person is I was a complete perfectionist. I was the kid in first grade where the teacher said, "Hey, we're going to do ripped paper art." That's the thing. They're like, "Oh, here, take a bunch of construction paper and rip shapes up and, paste them on and create art." And I was like, um, I need to make a circle and I don't have scissors. I'm pretty sure I cried, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my teacher had told my mom at some point that they were, the best ripped circles that she had ever seen. And I tell you this because for all of you out there who either suffer currently or in your past from perfectionism or this drive to want to be the best at every single thing you do,
Yeah.
it can be really hard. And so
Yeah.
my upbringing into becoming an adult was heavily centered around that, being perfect, being a perfect musician, being, you know, great at music, being perfect at school, perfect attendance, wanting to excel. And when the school I was in was very much getting in with the, you know, higher level advanced courses, which then fed me into being surrounded by those kind of people and learning that I loved space, wanting to go into engineering. And so I'm so fueled by that.
Yeah.
And and then that just kept going, right? I went to
Yeah.
college and I grew, but I went into industry. And at some point you realize, this feature of mine, this drive and wanting to be the best at everything, wanting to do everything is also extremely challenging,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so while you ask like, how did I get here? How did we get to this call here today?
Yeah.
It came with some of that pain, but it was through a realization of how do I get out of that
Yeah.
perfectionist mindset? How do I let myself just be
Yeah.
and grow? And then that was where, life really made a turn.
That's
If you can
interesting.
if you can work through that,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I dig it. So as a musician, what was the first concert you saw early on in your life that blew you away?
Ooh, oh, great question. I My first concert was a No Doubt concert.
Nice.
It was. That was just a whole lot of fun. But, I went to so many shows growing up. I just loved it. I would go to cover bands, we had a event venue nearby that would have a lot of cover bands. So I was really into classic rock. And so it'd be like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin cover
Uh-huh.
bands. And they would just come out, full almost costume and just it was just the sounds, right?
Yeah.
I feel that music I don't want to harsh on music today because there's just so many genres and everybody loves what they love and that's fine. But there was something really magical about how music was being made,
Yeah.
50 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so I really honed in on that, watching some of their performances and seeing what this fantastical version of performance could look like, you
Yeah.
know?
For sure. So how did you end up in Normal, Illinois?
Okay. So yes, all of my family and friends live in California and, Nevada, and I am over here in central Illinois. So my husband actually works at Rivian, the electric truck and vehicle company,
Yeah.
and we both were based in the Bay Area, and so was he. Rivian was there for a bit, and he got this temporary relocation to come over here. The factory is in town here in Normal, Illinois, and so it's been a 3-year process of living back and forth between California and Illinois.
Yeah.
And it's had its challenges. It's had its awesome things. We've now excelled in, building up a real estate investment company is also
Yeah.
part of one of my entrepreneurial things.
Yeah.
But, I think everybody should have the opportunity to live somewhere else.
Yeah. I get it. I totally get it. Who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for you in your life?
Whew. So many, so many different things depending on the subject. So I
Yeah.
will start here on my book that I wrote. I was extremely inspired, and that was, so I talked about how I was in aerospace for 12 years. I left the industry and I needed a reset in life. I needed to figure out what I wanted to do before I went back into industry and, have that moment, almost a sabbatical, if you will. And through that, I actually came across, like probably thousands of others out there, Hal Elrod's book on the miracle morning and his message and the way he coaches and, brings thought into the world just 100% inspired me.
Yeah,
That led me to read more and more books and start following more and more people to a point where I can't even answer your question when it comes to that side of me. Because
yeah,
there are just so many brilliant minds out there that want they either have a lot to say or even just a little, sometimes just a few quotes that they might say. So I just keep learning
yeah,
rather than pick one person to, really kind of like see as a hero. I just want to keep discovering who's out there,
sure.
who's here to inspire. So that's my life coaching, my conquer your summit world, what I
Yeah.
do with my authoring business. I'm just constantly picking out new heroes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me ask you this. If you can meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating, who would you love to meet?
So I'll hop over here for a second on the
Yeah.
artist musician side for
Oh, yeah.
fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And I absolutely love Brandy Carlisle.
Okay.
She's an Americana musician,
Uh-huh.
and I recently listened to her whole audiobook, memoir. I've been following her for years. And I just would love to spend time talking with, these quote real life musicians,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
hearing their story. I feel like the internet and the world portrays people in that fancy light. They only show success. And it would be so great to sit down with, some of these mainstream artists and just talk to them,
Yeah.
hear from them as a real person, right?
Yeah.
So I and whether it's Brandy Carlisle, I just pull that one out. There's a lot of musicians I love, but it's really getting to be able to sit down and talk to a musician who's been out there recording and performing and doing huge concert shows.
Yeah.
There's something
Yeah.
deeper in them that we don't really get the opportunity to see.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So let me ask you this. What is your motivation and drive every day to wake up? You have so many things going on. What propels you to do all of these things and then to ultimately grow as a human?
Yeah. So I think that it is extremely important that everyone takes time to determine what their life purpose is. And I know that is extremely challenging, also easy to say. But what I mean by that is your deepest why.
Yeah.
Why do you want to get out of bed every day and push forward? And that why can be a wise or a life purpose statement. It can be multiple. It should be multiple.
Yeah.
And so I say this little preamble because I have taken time to come up with my 3 to 5 things that drive my purpose. And one of them, the main one that I learned, and it was something that seems now really obvious, but if you don't sit down and, build a mind map or build a way for you to really dive deep into your past and your present and your future and everything around you, it's actually hard to funnel down on that life purpose. So I found that my life purpose was I really want to be, fully financially free so that I can spend my time helping others. I've spent so much of my life helping, family and friends naturally. If someone comes to me and needs something, I'll drop anything and, try to go solve that problem. And I said, why do you always do this? Is this a positive thing about you or a negative thing that you need to start, working boundaries and not just trying to help everyone?
Yeah.
And it took me, going through writing my book and writing down the summit method to realize the more people I can affect in life, the more change I can bring. And even if it's a small or large gesture, I want to do that. It not only makes me, feel good, but I feel like I actually can do my small part in this world to hopefully make a difference or a legacy in a ripple effect to others. So I wake up every day thinking, all right, what are these, small steps I'm going to make today
Yeah.
to get towards completing, certain goals that I have that are all really feeding towards being able to more effectively help others. Because when we're all distracted with 1,000 different things we have to do, it's hard to remember to go back and, give into the community. So looking to try and
Absolutely.
build more of that time.
Absolutely. So what's been one of your best fan letters you've gotten from your book?
Oh, okay. Um, I my first chapter of the book is called Your Deepest Why. which is perfect because we just talked about this, what you want, getting out of bed and what drives you. And that first chapter is about how to develop your life purpose statement. I think it's the first thing you need to do before you can do anything else for planning the rest of your life. And I had someone reach out to me sharing that, you know, the method that I created to help people actually come up with that statement and
Yeah,
see what their items are was, the best version that they had ever, come across or read, um, to do that activity, which I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here. That's not my intention. I
sure.
want to share that I had just published my book. And if you've ever published a book or if you ever published like anything, you put yourself out into the world, it's scary. It's really hard. You are now vulnerable to saying, okay, I just spent a bunch of time on this. Is it good? Does it work? Are other people going to enjoy this or need this or, be able to grow? And when I got that letter, it was this it was this instant gratification that, this person not only bought my book, um, they took the time to reach out to me and they shared with me that something that I put down changed their life. So it was just a moment where I felt like I have this goal to help people and I could actually see it versus, when you help people, usually, well, one, I don't do it just to have them be like, "Oh, thank you." That's not why I help people.
Sure.
But it's always really nice to be like, "Oh, cool. I actually am on the right path
Yeah. Yeah.
to getting to where I wanted to go." So
Yeah.
it sounds really simple, but that moment was really powerful for me at a time when I really needed it to feel
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep
Absolutely.
building this platform."
Absolutely. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I have received is about boundaries. That in this world, I think, not everybody struggles with this as much as maybe I did at a time period in my life, but it's really easy to either want to do everything or to say yes too much or, you know, to not be able to set boundaries. And whether that's with people or commitments or work or, personal life or kids, whatever it might be, the best advice I got was to say, you know, what is the worst that could happen when setting a boundary? If I choose to, you know, never um randomly come up with a thing. If I choose to never drink tea again, I'm just randomly pull that out. What's the worst that could happen? Well, I, I would just probably have an extreme craving for tea occasionally and I'd have to deal with that. Okay, is that big of a deal? No. Okay. Could you set a boundary and never drink tea again? Sure. But that same concept can work with people. If I had a friend in life or maybe even a family member who was challenging, I I need to ask those same questions. If I had to go almost, break up with a friend, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
And really dive into that. Really start thinking of all the bad things that could happen, obviously the good things as well. And can you accept that? Go do it. You can apply this in your work life. Hey, I want to go talk to my manager. I want to go ask for a promotion or lay out, how can you help me figure out how to get to the next level? Or, I want to work on this new project and you're scared to go talk to your manager. Well, ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could happen, in that interaction?
Yeah.
Maybe the answer is no, well, are you going to die? I mean, I hope you're not going to die from that
Yeah.
interaction, but the more we can start thinking about not worrying so much, not letting your mind create all of these versions of what could happen and focus on, being clear about intentions, the easier it can be to go through hard interactions in life. And so
Yeah.
the best advice was to learn to set boundaries, good ones, and bad ones or away from bad things. And you will be able to start, charting this course into where you want to be.
So of all of the things that you've done and evolved into in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I am I'm so proud of something that doesn't exist yet. Okay. So, I started writing music in 2012,
Yeah,
so a long time ago, and I I did it because I felt like my voice didn't really fit with a lot of, pop stars or, hype music that was out, and I thought, "You know what? Maybe I need to just try to create my own." And I wrote, my first song. I did something. I mean, that sounds really simple. Like I just magically wrote my first song. No, it took a long time of me trying to figure that out and not being able to write my own music. And then all of a sudden, I did it. I talked with some musicians. I cracked whatever problem I had in my head, and I wrote my first song. And I just kept going. And then I started doing gigs, and everyone would say, "Oh, can I get your album?" And I would say, I just play gigs. I don't have an album. I don't have a CD. No CDs anymore, but at
yeah,
that time it was, can I get your CD? And I didn't have that. And it really bothered me, and I went through a 10-year trip of saying, how do I get my album recorded? I bought equipment. I worked with other musician friends. I recorded some of my own stuff, which there is a reason why people go to school and become, studio engineers and, producing music
yeah,
is complicated. I don't know why I thought I could do that myself, but I did. I tried to do things myself and, perfectionism getting in the way. It just was never going to work out. So fast forward to 2022 when I went through this process of learning the miracle morning and, reading Baddest Habits and working through growing as a person after I'd left my executive job at a startup, I said, you know what? I'm here in Normal, Illinois. I'm going to find a studio.
yeah,
I'm going to walk into that studio and I'm just going to be honest that I don't know what I'm doing, but
yeah,
I want to record my album.
yeah,
And so here I am in 2024. It's taken longer than I like, but that's how life works.
yep,
And I'm both obviously really proud of the fact that I can write songs. I am a singer-songwriter. I've written, 45 plus songs. That first song was an amazing breakthrough and accomplishment for me, but I cannot wait to have a moment where I can pull up Spotify or Apple Music here in the next before the end of the year and my album will be there.
yeah.
13 songs of, my selection, 10 plus years in the making, and that is something that really I jump out of bed every day to be like, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if anyone wants to pick up your book, get this album that's going to come out, learn more about you, anything about your world, where do they go?
Absolutely. So, a couple things. Please, if you are on Instagram or TikTok, give me a follow. I am building all of that up right now. So, you can go check me out at Aliki Samone Music, and that's the same handle for both platforms, and the Summit Method for any of the book work. But if you're not on social media, you can just head to my website, www.conqueryoursummit.com. That will feed you to everything related to the book, Conquer Your Summit, how to build a 5-year plan and live your best life. Also, you can contact me there, emails there, all that kind of fun stuff. And then on the music side, you can reach out to me, mostly on social media right now.
Excellent. Alakai, this has been so great. Thank you for your energy, for your time, for your story. Best of luck with the album and everything else. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank you.
day.
You too. Take